all the celebrations going on, all the year-end reviews. It's been a fascinating year, and thank you for asking me to come on tonight. This is going to be a fun show, I think.
I think it's going to be different anyway. And the year, it just seems like, last September I was talking to my friend Art Bell. And, he, kind of scolded me for, riding my motorcycle at my age and my health issues I have. And he said, get back in radio, and I'm kind of stubborn. I did, I figured, oh, well, maybe I will. But, I was stubborn. I figured, since I'm into motorcycles so much, Michael, I'm not going to do, a normal talk show. I'm going to do something very intelligent. And that was called Motorcycle Talk. And I'll tell you how intelligent that show was. I had no listeners. If I did, I would have had to pay him to listen.
Yeah, I can imagine you talking with, Art was a motorcycle buddy of yours, and so I'm thinking you're telling him, well, yeah, I'll get back into radio. I'll do a motorcycle talk show. I would imagine his response was a little underwhelming at the time, but interesting.
Well, he didn't ride, but, he was infatuated with the brand Harley, and I'd go up there, and when he was there, when he wasn't in the Philippines or out doing what he was doing, yeah, I'd stop in there, at his compound and boy, I hate to say it, his place kind of reminded me like either one of those underground silo bases with that fence around it, or it kind of reminded me when like one of my kids was in reform school with that fence around his compound.
Yeah, and I understand he had a massive radio array antenna as well that he was setting up around his property.
Well, he had just more than one antenna right next to his compound. There was a whole, it looked like a test area for antennas. But, yeah, he had a lot of antennas. Just like me, he loved talking. He loved talking like on 10-meter band a lot. But, he had one issue with his huge antenna he designed and built. I think it almost could power the whole town of Pahrump. It was putting out like electricity like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I'll bet.
So, that's, all I can say is, Art said, hey, get back into radio. I did it, and then I made the decision I was actually going to quit. I'll be honest with you. I was embarrassed, because of all my years of working on radio stations and stuff like that, to end up with only, after a month and a half, 15 people listening. I was so discouraged, embarrassed, and, and the way Art would laugh. He could laugh like nobody ever could laugh. And,
yes,
and he just said to me, he says, well, are you done fooling around? And I said, yeah. And he goes, do what you do best. You got a big mouth, use it. Get into the paranormal. There's not many good shows on the internet in the paranormal. And he says, jump on it. And, with his guidance, I got the right equipment. I got it set up. And here I am. And I went from 15 listeners to 25. Well, maybe a little bit more than that. But we got a lot of listeners on our network. And that's, I want to thank Art, because if I wouldn't have done this, you wouldn't be having an extra little place that you could call your home on the, bandwidth and, and 4 other guys. I mean, this thing is really growing really fast.
Well, in just a little over a year since Art talked you into getting back on the air in paranormal radio, look where you're at now, Gary. My gosh, you've got a worldwide audience. You've got, hundreds of thousands of listeners every night. And it's kind of fun to hear the statistics for when Europe wakes up 7 hours from now, for instance, and different parts of the world, jump in to the broadcast and listen to it on the archives. People are just starving for this information, that's for sure.
Well, what I also find interesting, I take my daughter to work at 5:30 a.m. Pacific West Coast time, and then I come into my studio and start booking people. And in going through, I learned one thing. I try to respond to everybody who either texts me a message or emails me. I try to respond, as fast as I can. Sometimes nowadays it takes 3 or 4 days. While back, it took like 20 minutes. But now it's so many, but I try to respond. And I find, a lot of people are coming out of the UK. Australia is starting to pick up like you wouldn't believe. And, like I told you, I think it was now going on 2.5, maybe 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, I think. I got a phone call around 4 something in the morning, and I'm half awake when I get the phone call. And
I love this story. You got to make sure everyone hears all the details of this call.
Well, it's nothing really, other than I thought it was a put on first. And the guy, with his broken English, and actually he probably speaks better than I do, said, "Hey, would you like to go on the air?" And I didn't realize where he was at. I just kind of said, well, it's like 4 something in the morning. I just went to bed at 2 o'clock. And he goes, well, I'm calling from Spain. And I said, okay, and I started thinking, why would he pick on me of anybody, to, go on the air and do an interview. And during the interview, he said in Spain that the people are going crazy over the paranormal, and they love the paranormal shows coming out of our country, the USA. And I said, wow, that's really cool, and I started mentioning some like Coast to Coast, and he goes, oh, no, not Coast to Coast, your show. And I go, what do you mean my show? And he goes, your show is one of the top downloaded shows in Spain, in the paranormal.
Wow. That is fantastic.
And that really shocked me. So, we talked for a while, and I told him about Art Bell and how I got into it and how I hardly ride my motorcycle anymore because my time's all involved doing what I'm doing here. And I'm like Art Bell in one way. Art Bell was a fanatic when it came to like amateur radio or radio, period. Always working and tinkering with his electronics, trying to make it better, make it sound better, have to have the newest thing. And I'm surprised my wife is still with me, Linda. I want to say thank you for not abandoning me. I mean, it's been like every 2 weeks, it's something new.
Yeah, and I know that you scour all the secondhand bulk opportunities out there as well as far as electronics, and you get the best stuff, like the X things from Boeing, from Microsoft and all those kinds of things. You've got a knack for finding the top of the line stuff at decent prices too.
Well, some of the equipment I originally, I bought used, like servers. I paid $900 and some a piece for them. And I hate to say it, just the other day I stumbled on around $40 a piece for working great servers in better condition than what I paid $900 for. And I just, sit there and, me and my wife sat and she goes, well, you know how much you spent in your studio the past year? And I knew it. Okay, she must be talking to her friends down. My wife works for Dell Computers, folks. She runs the service center for Boeing's for Dell. And I figured, okay, she's talking to one of the other technicians because they actually hired an ex-DJ who's now working on laptops, for Dell. And ooh. I started thinking, oh my God, okay, people are telling her, hey, maybe she should ditch me because of, being a fanatic on this equipment. And I have spent, and I'm not bragging because it's hard. If you want to do a good quality show and to be able to do what we're doing right now, like have a network. I mean, everything I did this past year, I think there had to be a reason for it because I'm all set up to do what we're doing with our new network because I bought all the equipment and it's always here. We're ready to go.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you've got redundancy in case there's a problem. I mean, that's what major networks do. They're not going to be messing around with a power outage or anything like that or a server going down. And man, you've really prepared for that.
Well, if people are on Facebook, I'm broadcasting on my main page on Facebook. And I'm broadcasting also, or, on Facebook Live on our network page. Well, hey, you can see how fat I am on the front view on my personal one or my network, I don't know. And the other one, you can see my back view, which I turn around eventually and wave at people. But you can actually see, two different shots of my studio. Now, I have a control desk set up that I have 4 computers running. And, those 4 computers is for 2 of them are dedicated for Skype. One is dedicated, for the broadcast software. And one is dedicated, for the servers and going out to all the different apps. But I couldn't resist I figured, if something ever went down, I couldn't do a show. So I turned around and I'm a fanatic. I found a matching table identical to what I had, broadcast table. And then I set up with, the same type of mixer, the microphone, all the same computers. I think on that side I got 5 computers, all going into the 6. Well, I got 3 servers going out now. I got 3 backup servers. So if something went down, I just switch over to the other table and plump my butt down, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And boy, I tell you what, that came home to roost on Friday night when I'm sure you got that notice like I did on all my electronic devices that the 911 system went down all across the United States on Friday night. And I'm thinking, whoa, if 911 can go down, they need to work on their redundancy.
Well, it scares me, but I got a funny feeling it's coming from, one of 3 places. Maybe Russia, maybe China, or North Korea. They've been really hacking into our power grids and all kinds of different things to see what chaos they could, cause.
Yeah. Just think of that Con Ed power station that blew up just, what was that, the same day or the day before? Who knows what's going on with those kind of things?
Well, when that blew up, a lot of people, on Facebook started immediately saying, oh, that was caused by a UFO. I think it was just caused by an overload. And yes, you will get blue flames, blue whatever, with high voltage and electrical wires and all that stuff kind of like melting and doing its thing. And transformers. Yeah, it was a strange event, and a whole lot of people caught it on tape, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. A lot of people were scared that it was UFOs and all this stuff. First you lose the 911, then this happens, People started, not, knowing what was going on. And a lot of people don't trust the government anymore. So that's the other issue. You don't, what you hear on the news. Do you believe it or not? Trump said it's fake news. And of course, then on the other hand, what Trump says is fake news. So who do you believe?
Yeah. Matter of fact, on that Friday night thing, when the 911 system went down, the first thing I thought of is this old broadcast I heard one time of if indeed the government is going to be shutting down or taking over, it's going to happen on a Friday night or Friday afternoon when the banks go down, and the banks say that they have got some kind of a software glitch. They're going to work on it over the weekend and then reopen on Monday. I'm thinking, oh man, that's awful close. It's a Friday afternoon, and all of a sudden the 911 system goes down. I was getting a little nervous about that.
Well, have you ever thought if the banks all closed up on Friday because everything goes down? Let's face it, if the internet goes down, okay, you're not going to be able to withdraw any money out of your bank account. You're not going to be able to use your credit cards and debit cards. What are you going to do? You're going to panic, right? Now, what happens when you go to the bank Monday and you say you want to take out $5,000 and they look at you and say, well, you can only take out this amount of money.
Yes.
There is a rule, and you think if something happens, you can pull your money out of the bank. They don't have to give you your money. They can give it to you in small dosages.
Yeah, exactly. It's right there in your contract when you put your money in their facility. There's certain restrictions that you can do. You have to abide by it, even to get your money out. So, but of course, we're all in the same boat because we don't like keeping cash around our houses and that kind of thing. So, I don't know what's going to happen if that ever happens. It's going to be amazing.